Greetings folks and welcome to the Electromaker Show. This is your midweek roundup of all things Maker and embedded and, well, lovely. This week we have a nice mixture of projects, a new board from the Unexpected Maker, a wonderful display done by thousands of drones, along with a few cool things on Kickstarter. So without any further ado, let's get on with this week's show. We're going to begin with a few interesting projects I've seen this week, but first, a little housekeeping. We are a YouTube show, and therefore we need to ask you to do YouTube things. If you click subscribe on our channel, it won't change your day-to-day usage of YouTube very much, but it will let YouTube know that you like the show enough to subscribe to our channel. The same goes for clicking like on the video. It doesn't really take much of your time, but it does let YouTube know that you like it and makes it much more likely they'll recommend it to other like-minded people. Now, the notification bell is something that people go on about all the time. What that means is that you will get a notification every time that we put an upload on this channel. Realistically, we upload on this channel just once a week for this show. There are some exceptions to that rule, but they are rare. And again, that is a really big signifier to YouTube that you enjoy the show enough to want to know exactly when it comes out each week. These three things you can do are free. They will help us out a lot, and there is no obligation to do them if you really don't want to. Another nice piece of Electromaker news is, as mentioned on last week's show, we now have a Discord server. It's been a long time coming, but it has finally landed. And while it is very new, a lot of people have already joined and are posting really cool projects in there. I am looking forward to finally documenting and posting some projects from a long time ago that I never got around to doing. Yes, if you want to interact with other people who watch the show and me and the team behind the show, this is the best place to do it. Now, YouTube comments genuinely help us. I can't get around that. I'm going to continue asking you to comment on videos because, again, that's a YouTube thing, but this is a much more conversational way of hanging out, and we appreciate that people want that, and I do too. So yes, if you're not already on the Discord server, there'll be a link in the description of this video. Come and say hi. Up first this week, can it run Doom? That is the meme question of all hardware hackers, and making Doom run on all kinds of things, including a smart fridge and even a digital pregnancy test, albeit a highly modified one, is something that happens on the internet. And now it's been taken a kind of a slight step further because this is Doom running on a bootloader. So what we have here is Doom running in a web browser, which may not seem too exciting to you, but then if you look down here, you notice that this is a RISC-V RV64 version. This is a barebox image running Doom in an emulator which has been compiled to WebAssembly, and yes, that's quite the sentence. But this is essentially an advert for barebox. Now, as it says here, the core design choice behind barebox could be summed up as frameworks. Frameworks for how drivers interact, how devices are detected, how hardware is manipulated by the user, and how redundant boot happens, how reset reasons are propagated, and so on and so forth. It is a very open way of starting any project. The idea behind it is it's a bootloader that could be the basis of a file system, or it could just be used for hardware bring up and for getting the very bare bones of something together to program on the bare metal. It's designed to be somewhat of a Swiss Army knife. So as mentioned, Bare Doom is supposed to bring attention to bare box, which is a generic way of working with the same code across a lot of different forms of hardware. As the author mentions here, Bare Doom builds on generic bare box infrastructure like frame, buffer, input, sound, file system, and C environment support to let you chase demons from Mars to hell and back. It's completely generic code, so it runs everywhere barebox is running, be it bare metal on an IMX6 heavy machinery control panel, on your laptop under UEFI, or even on a RISC-V emulator compiled to WebAssembly, as we just saw before. So yes, you can add bootloaders everywhere to what Doom will run on. This is a fantastic thing. I really look forward to digging into it a little bit more, and I will leave a link to the Hackaday article I first saw it in the description of this video. Up next, alien art using just a few logic characters. Now, a few people pointed this out to me this week, and it kind of blew up on Twitter. This is in JavaScript, but this would be a perfect thing to do on any microcontroller with any kind of display. It's a really fun way to generate some really cool imagery, and it's actually quite simple to do. Hey folks, Futurian here. I realized that I completely forgot to credit the actual name of the Twitter account I looked at this stuff from. It is Martin Klepper on Twitter. You can find him at AEMKEI, or at Aimkai, I suppose you would pronounce it. But yes, in my absolute excitement to talk about cool-looking alien artwork from Bitwise Logical Operandi, I forgot to credit the person that actually put it up on Twitter. So, as you can see above my head, there is a little logical operand here. This is X exclusive or Y, modulo 9. If this evaluates to true, put something on the screen. The actual JavaScript code is just below here, and as you can see, it's pretty simple. It's just a double for loop, and again, if this evaluates to true, fill rectangle, a 4-pixel rectangle, and look. It's really quite special. It reminds me of, yes, alien artwork, but also something like this is the first satellite image we've got back from an alien planet, and we have these weird IC package-looking houses or factories and streets and all perfect. Oh, I love it. I really do. So I'll leave a link to this Twitter thread in the description. There's a few cool things here. There's a few different versions of it as well. And I noticed as well that someone, I don't know if this is a reply to it or just another thing that Twitter threw up, has done some quite fun things with shaders as well. Oh, there's so many more of these than I realized. This is so cool. But yes, this entire thread takes you through various different, still relatively simple, bitwise logical operations that can produce these fantastic images. Yeah, as you can see in the replies, various other people have done it too in various ways in animated versions as well. Up next, another week and yet another video from Zach Friedman that I cannot not put in the show because it is just so incredibly helpful. If you are someone who, like me, frequently 3D prints, thinks they sort of know a little bit about it, but secretly are kind of scared because there's so many different kinds of filament they don't know how to use, this is the video for you. Yes, this is how to use every single kind of 3D printing filament, and he really does mean every single kind. This is just an incredible resource, and there's some stuff in here that I did not realize was the case, and it probably is why I've had a few failed prints in the past. So this is a great resource for anyone that wants to get better at their 3D printing by understanding filament, and this is also somewhat of a celebration for Zach because he, at the start of the video, shows that he got his play button from YouTube because he has quite quickly jumped up in subscribers. He is now almost at 200,000 subscribers. He has had a meteoric rise. Meteoric rise is, wait, meteors go down? No, he hasn't had a meteoric rise because meteors don't rise. What's the opposite of a meteoric rise? He's had a space shuttle launch of a start of his career on YouTube getting bigger. I don't know. Either way, fantastic video. We'll leave a link to it in the description. This is just a marvelous thing for anyone who wants to improve their 3D printing game. Up next, a guide to OpenSCAD. Now, as OpenSCAD describes itself, it is the programmer's solid 3D CAD modeler. And as you can see from the image here, it's essentially a way of modeling using just text and code. Now, to some of you, that might sound like an absolute nightmare. To me, I actually find this a little bit less intimidating than using programs that require you to learn the UI. I'd much prefer to place everything in code. However, I have not used it very much, and the few times that I have very quickly hit a wall where I would require a lot of time spent digging through documentation and learning in order to really do anything good, like this, for example. And that is where Jochen Kurdels can help. This book, Mastering OpenSCAD Within 10 Projects, is, well, as it mentions, it's a 10 project based book. Within these 10 projects, you learn everything you need to know to come up with some quite complex models in OpenSCAD. You can buy this book on Amazon, and I'm going to wholeheartedly recommend that you do. I haven't got it yet, I'm going to, but you can read it for free on the site, and within just a few minutes of skimming through this, I knew that I wanted this to be a book that I owned, and I also want to support the creator, because this is, frankly, the best resource on OpenSCAD I've ever come across. So perhaps unsurprisingly, as it mentions on the page before, this is 10 different projects, starting at something very simple like a shelf bracket like this, and then moving through to a few different things like a DIY wall anchor, a window stopper, and it goes right down to some quite complex things like making recursive trees. Everything in here is described in such a simple and beautiful way. As mentioned, if you are interested in OpenSCAD at all, this is something that I would be very, very highly recommending. It is time for us to announce the winner of last week's competition on the Electromaker Show. Now, if you remember, we did not have a regular mystery box competition. We are instead giving away this. This is one of the 2 boards NXP provided for the Electromaker contest, which is ongoing, the NXP Hackathon 2021. And here is the development board on the NXP website. Now, there's a lot that I could say about this board, which I don't have time to do now. I did write a write-up of this board on the Electromaker website if you are interested, but there's a few things about it that are notable. Arduino-compatible headers just here, audio, and also the fact that it runs Zephyr OS, which is one of the many open source real-time operating systems that I believe NXP were part of putting together in the first place. Don't quote me on that. But you may have noticed something, that the board on the screen there looks a little bit different to the one that I have in my hand, and that is because it has a shield on top. Yes, this is the Sensor Toolbox development platform for letters, pressure altimeter sensor. This is a high precision altimeter and pressure sensor. And as you can see, it fits nicely into the Arduino compatible shield header things on this board here. This is what we're giving away. And last week, all I said you needed to do was be a subscriber to the channel, hashtag NXP, and say what you wanted to do with the board. And we would choose a winner from that. And we've done that. We have found a winner. Yes, it was very difficult to choose a winner because there were some fantastic ideas here, but Al Watt's idea of using the microphone and down-converting ultrasonic sound to an audio level to send out via Bluetooth 5 is incredible, as he says here, bat detection. That is an incredibly cool idea, Al. I really look forward to seeing if you can make it all fit together and work. If you do, write it up on the Electromaker website, let me know. I will feature it in the show without a doubt. But congratulations, Al. We'll be in touch with you as to how we can get this hardware out to you. Now, next week, the mystery box will return as normal, and in case you are new to the show and you don't know what that means, this is the mystery box. Now, as you can see, it has mystery box written on it, and it also has Mauser Electronics, who are the lovely people who sent us this stuff to give away. Now, every week that we don't have a competition like the one I was just giving away this week, I take a random comment from a subscriber and give them something from this box. Now, so far we've given away things like microbits, teensies, different kinds of Arduino add-ons, including some Arduino boards themselves, some really crazy, like high-level industry stuff, which is evaluation stuff for the industry, some of which I'd never even heard of before, but it's insanely powerful and sometimes kind of expensive. The point is, every single comment on our channel is entered into a lottery to win one of these things, and I reach my hand in on most regular weeks and give one away. So yes, just in case you weren't familiar, that's the mystery box competition. Most of our contests are random, some of them are less random, but that's way too much explaining. So yeah, let's get on with the rest of the show. Up next, funding website things, and we are returning to the hardware side of Kickstarter, somewhere we haven't been for a little while. Starting with Axon, which is a Wi-Fi and long-range messaging platform made for the Internet of Things. Now, one of the things about this project that I like is the fact that at its basis, it's incredibly simple. This is just a way of talking to a chip and then sending out all that information via serial. You can attach anything that has a serial port to it and essentially turn it into an IoT object. So the core idea is relatively simple. As mentioned, it is a Wi-Fi serial port, and as such it has an ESP32-66 on it for the Wi-Fi side of things, as well as a USB-C connector for power and a switch for different kinds of data. And this is where it gets kind of interesting. It works with long range as well, so you can attach that in an aerial, and essentially anything that has a serial port you can talk to using this device. There is also a cloud platform, which is essentially the serial monitor from the Arduino IDE or similar that works in the cloud in your browser. And the cloud platform is provided by Axon and presumably is available to anyone who actually owns the device. So I feel like Axon's quite a nice concept, really, because you could just attach, say, a temperature sensor to it and then have that send things over Wi-Fi to the cloud, and then the Axon cloud could save that data for you. Or you could attach it to something a bit smarter, like a Raspberry Pi, as it mentions here, and then just send out any information or anything that does over serial, and again, that can be sent to the cloud, or it can be sent to yet another device. This is essentially just a wireless serial tool. It's not the first thing that's done it, I just feel like this is doing it in quite an elegant way. So if this does seem interesting to you, I suggest heading to the Kickstarter page and taking a quick look at it. There's loads of examples as to how it could be used in different situations. It talks a little bit about the Lora version as well, with up to 3 kilometers of range. And yeah, there's a bunch of interesting information here. Now, they have already reached their pledge. They wanted 1,000 euros. They have made 2,700 euros, but there is still 21 days to go. And you can, of course, still pledge on it. 17 euros will get you one of the Axon boards, or you can spend 34 euros and get two. I would imagine that if you were wanting to get involved in this, getting two might be quite interesting, because then you could essentially take two of your favorite not Wi-Fi enabled things and make them Wi-Fi enabled using it and get them talking to each other. Anyway, I will leave a link to this in the description of the video. Up next, Ototo, which is a way of making music out of anything. Now this is not a new Kickstarter, actually this is from several years ago, but it's something that I thought would be worth mentioning because you know how I feel about microcontrollers and music and things like that put together. This essentially is a microcontroller with a bunch of capacitive touch sensitivity pads. It has a little built-in speaker and is able to generate its own tones. It has a little bit of synthesis built in. Now this is nowhere near as complicated as, say, something like the Bella platform. It's a little bit closer in many ways to something like a Makey with a bit of audio built into it, but I just thought it was so fascinating that it was worth a look. So as you can see there, that's using an aubergine as a nice little capacitive touch sensor thing, and they plug in various other sensors to change the sound as well. So as mentioned, on the surface the thing itself is quite simple. All these capacitive touch pads and a little synthesizer on board. So that allows you to do some kind of interesting things, like as you can see here, this mad little guitar looking beast. But the other thing that's interesting about it is that it has a USB MIDI host on it, which means that you can plug it into anything. You can use it to control Ableton, or you can control it from a MIDI controller, like say a phone.
And we can add the bass as well.
Now, just in case it isn't clear, these are cups of water, and then by touching the surface of the water, it is being picked up on the sensors of the Ototo, and that is sending a USB signal via MIDI, a MIDI signal via USB to Ableton Live and changing the patterns. There's a bunch of 2-wire sensors that attach to it as well. Now, things like the rotation and light sensor and the slider are all relatively normal. The one that got me kind of excited was this. This is a breath sensor. So you could essentially, use it to make a sort of quasi-digital wind instrument, which is something I'm also very interested in. Anyway, Ototo is clearly a very cool project, and if you are interested in knowing more about it, head to the Kickstarter page. There are a few links out to its creator from there, as well as where you can now buy them. I just thought this is exactly the kind of thing that I like, and I did want to put it into the show despite it being a little bit old. We're going to close out this week's show with just a couple of cool things seen on the internet, starting with a new board from the Unexpected Maker. We'll be relying on CNX software for this one, and yes, this is the new board from the Unexpected Maker. TinyS2 ESP32-S2 board is designed for battery operation. Now, you can get an idea about how small this board is by this USB Type-C connector. That's a good way of sort of scaling it out. And as mentioned, it has a power management chip for battery management. Quite a nice addition there is a WS2812B LED, so you've got an RGB LED on there for various forms of feedback. And then, of course, the ESP32-S2 chip itself, which is the single-core variant of the ESP32 chip, still very, very powerful with a lot of nice features. Another nice feature of the ESP32-S2 is that it is capable of working as a USB on-the-go device, or USB HID. They were a little bit slower releasing support for that, and I don't honestly know exactly where that lands right now. I know that it works on the TinyUSB stack. I know that you can develop USB devices with it. But at the end of the day, this is still just a very, very nicely put together board with a lot of nice things on it. It is very small, it's got a bunch of stuff that's going to be very, very useful. I have already predictably ordered quite a few of these. If you do get them, I don't honestly know for sure the best way to get them, but you can get them directly from the Unexpected Maker store, which is what I did. I mean, it seems likely to me that getting it directly from the guy's store is going to be the best way to get him the most money without any cuts off the top. I don't know. But here it is. I will leave a link to the nice CNX software article about it in the description, which gives a very full rundown of everything that it can do. Lovely little board. And finally this week, something that's a little off-piste for this show, but something that I thought was a little bit too cool to skip over. This is an image from Shanghai of a QR code in the sky as part of a display by thousands of drones. Now, the display itself was part of an advertisement for a mobile video game of all things, I think. I do actually have some of the footage from it here from a separate website. And there's numerous things about this that I find interesting. First is that, the QR code, as previously mentioned, did actually work. There's a few people that were able to take the photo of the QR code in the sky and get a link to the game in question. But this is what really interests me here. Now, what you have here essentially is a pixel screen in the sky where the pixels can move independently. So you could just have a grid of thousands of drones. Each one of them has their own little RGB light on, admittedly probably quite a bright one. But then you could just set them all to move out of the way and get these to move just as drones and get them to move incredibly smoothly because they're not moving from pixel to pixel, whatever the resolution is. You can change that resolution on the fly. A drone grid in the sky essentially could be very low pixel resolution in the top right of the image where you don't need anything, and then incredibly high resolution down the bottom. It's just the only thing that would stop you would be how close the drones could fly together, I guess. There's a lot of really interesting things, and I'm absolutely aware that this week there have been even more impressive displays with drones. This one was just sort of interesting because of the QR code element. But yes, if I scoop on just a little bit, what you're seeing here is a game playing out in the sky. So where are we? Yeah, this is an attack from your crowd in the RPG attacking the dragon, and then the dragon is taking damage. It's just such a lovely thing. And of course, this is the moment where it turns into a QR code, which I love the way that it seems to happen. I mean, obviously this must have been a design choice, but I love the way that it just seems to happen so quickly. Like they're all getting into a spot to do something and then bang, there it is. And yeah, it's obviously got quite a reaction. And I just think this is incredibly inventive. It's kind of weird, in my opinion, that it's for a mobile game, but I guess they make a lot of money. But yeah, there's a lot to think about in terms of drone art, and I understand that not all of it is positive. But this video is an example of how you can use modern technology in ways that maybe people didn't necessarily think it would be used for in the first place. Certainly when drones first came out, beyond using them as, good ways to get cameras in the sky without needing a helicopter anymore, I never really thought of it in terms of this. But then you get, like first-person view drone flying, and now this increasingly often thousands of drones in the sky to make something beautiful thing. Anyway, I will leave a link to the Reddit post in the description of this video, and in the comments of this Reddit post is where you will find the video that we were just looking at. That was our show for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found some stuff in this week's show that interested you. If there's anything that you think I'm not covering that you would like to see on the show, please do leave it as a suggestion in the comments or head to our new Discord server. There is a link to that in the description of this video. As always, the YouTube gubbins of liking and subscribing is always appreciated, but you do not have to do that by any means. The main thing is that you have a fun, enjoyable, and safe week, and I will see you in the next show.